Aloha, I'm Kelly Boy Dilima, and you're watching Aloha in the Making.
Tell us about your newfound relationship.
Yeah, so I met my wife at Sparky's Lounge, and we started, going out and dating, and I remember her and I, man, just always talking, you know. I would be, and I moved out of Waikiki. I went to go back and live with my mom, and I just wanted to start, you know what I mean, fresh and new, and you know, I was still, going through my drugs. I was still drugging. She never ever knew about that life. She never knew that I was into, all the drugs that I was doing. But I kept that from her, and basically, she was like this light that was, I always tell her that she's like almost like my life preserver, like she was the one that I always felt that saved me. And if I can be real, she was a pastor's daughter. She still is. A pastor's daughter, and I didn't know that at that time that that I was getting introduced to a different life, and she brought that out. She never did drugs. She was the sweetest and still is the sweetest person. Kind Hawaiian girls, bro, they just the kind that just take care of you. And when I mean take care of you, they cook for you, they just take care of you in any kind of way that they can. And they just got that that personality, but yet she was still one Hawaiian girl. Like, you better mind your, have some respect and all of that, but so being that we were in love and we're new to love, and I was playing music at Sparky's Lounge, and she was working at Straub Hospital. She had a great job. She was getting paid. And me, I was getting paid, but when you get gig, you get paid and all these kind of stuff. So sometimes I never had money, so we'd go out on dates, and for her, I would like to take her back to all my old stomping grounds. So I remember like Kapahulu Avenue. I remember the first time I went with her, we went to Jack in the Box, and my favorite was a number 7, the ultimate cheeseburger with curly fries, and I looked at her and I goes, "Oh, shucks, you get money." She goes, "What?" So, bro, our first, official out eating date, she paid for them, but for the rest of my life, I paid for her. That, and I still paying. But anyway, we would go to Paki Park and we would sit down, and that's where I grew up. Kapahulu Ave was my paper route over there too, and we just grew up. And then I remember one night I told her, "Oh, we're going to Waikiki," and I never told her about my past, and she was this good girl, and I never told some of you guys, but my cousins, my cousin Kipu was running this this prostitution hotel, and back in the day, I would work, for him, and so girls would come and go, with their dates, and so I was running that with my cousin, and just whenever he needed to cut out and do something, whatever, I would be running the I would stand in for him. So in Waikiki, and I was working for different drug dealers and stuff in Waikiki too, and so everybody knew everybody, in other words, so most of the prostitutes, they knew me by first name, Kelly Boy. And anyway, this was my past, right? This is my past. And I took my girlfriend at the time, to take her into Waikiki and just and here I am. I'm walking into, what was it? Jack in a Box, Waikiki Jack in a Box. I'm walking in and these 2 or 3, prostitutes that was working that night, I knew them. And they walked out and they all came up one by one and hugged me and, Kelly boy, how are you? We never see you long time and this, that, and the other. And my girlfriend, who is my wife now, is standing on the side like, what the heck is going on? Who is this guy? And she thought I was on customer. She thought I was a customer, and I said, no, babes, I gotta tell you. So I had to explain to her my past, and as life went on, I explained to her, but she never ever knew the drug thing, and I was, leading my life and we did a lot of awesome stuff and one of them was, we had our first child, Kapena. I mean, we wasn't married when we conceived. And yes, I got the pastor's daughter, Hapai. And that wasn't too good. Especially on her side of the family, because these was all church people, generations of church people. And here's this guy that she never knew too long that got her, Hapai. And basically, I went in and I told her dad that it was the hottest thing, but I thought this guy was gonna beat the living heck out of me. And I told her dad, who was a pastor, that his daughter was pregnant, and he just went into complete shock. He was like, the only thing I remember him saying is, looking at Leo, and I remember Leo telling him, but Dad, we want to get married. I told him that we're Hapai, and but Dad, we want to get married. The only thing I remember him telling is, go call your mother. Get in a room and go call your mother. And I was thinking to myself, no leave. Don't leave me in the living room with him. Anyway, we ultimately, we got past that and we got married.
How was your wedding?
We had our first child, Kapena. And anyway, I remember even before we had the baby, we had to get married. And, you guys got to realize that I never went to church. I never ever knew what, who God was. I mean, the only thing that I knew about church was when I was living on Hana Street in Waianae in Makaha. There was a Pentecostal church on Lahaina Street. I know that it's Pentecostal now that I'm a Christian, because they was loud and they was praising them over there, and I asked my dad, I said, Dad, how come we don't go church? Because we would burn rubbish every Sunday. We had 1/2 acre yard, and my dad make me do my chores, and I would throw everything into the pit and would burn this pit. So one day Dad was out there and he would always light the and I hear the church going off, and I said, how come we don't go church, Dad? And he said, we just don't, boy, but we believe in God, And so I always carried that with me, that I believed in God. However, one of the requirements for me marrying my wife was that I had to fast and get baptized. And I never fasted before. I never even heard the word fast before. I never even know what that was. And we would fast. The fasting was 11 at night to 11 in the morning for 3 days. And this was before me getting baptized. I was never baptized in a church. So I fasted for 3 days, and then on Holy Communion Sunday at the church, I became baptized. Still yet though, I'm still doing, I was still, living my double life, So, I went about, what I had to do to, marry, my wife, and try to look good, yeah, in front of my mother and father-in-law and stuff, and and I remember getting married. I remember the day that I got married. My father-in-law was still upset. Me and Leo, we couldn't. She, I slept in the room when we got married. Oh no, when it was, what was it? When we were married? No, when we were married, we could sleep in the room together. But prior to that, I had moved in to my mother and father-in-law's. But my father-in-law, and she was Hapai already. My father-in-law said, "You guys no sleep in the same room. You understand?" And I was like, "Yes, Dad." So she would let me sleep in her room, and she would go outside and go sleep on the pune, and so that lasted for a while, and they wasn't talking to us. Everybody was like, they were her side of the family. They was just. And still yet, I mean, we never had too much money, and my mom never had nothing. She was living in Aiea, and she was raising my sister, and we never had much. So we had to put on this, we had to get married, and then we had to put one party. We had a big party in Waimanalo, and I remember the only thing that my mom could come up with, and that was stretching it, was $500 to pay for. That never even paid for probably the drinks, or you know what I mean, maybe whatever they could pay for at that time, but not much, so my mother and father-in-law came up with, and her brothers and sisters. So yeah, it was a little tense in the house, and nobody, like I said, was talking. And so we got married, and I remember that day she said that even my father-in-law was still pissed off. I mean, he was fighting with Leo, I think, that day at the wedding, and he was just, upset, but we're getting married. And, I told you guys about my past and about my dad beating my mom, and, I none of my other brothers, my brother and sister-in-laws ever got this talk from my mother-in-law. But my mother-in-law, she's from Waimanalo, and she's this hammer Hawaiian, this tira that gonna tell you straight. And I remember coming down, and Leo and I had just gotten married. We had walked down the stairs, and Leo had gone off to the side or whatever, and my mother-in-law pulled me on the side, and she told me, she said, "Dilima," she said, "I'm gonna ask you something right now. I don't ever want you to hit my daughter. And if you don't want her anymore," she told me, "please send her home."
What happened in your life to finally change your ways?
It wasn't until the birth of my daughter Kapena. When Kapena was born to me, I looked at her and I said, "Wow, one girl." Something about one girl that, kind of, you examine yourself, yeah? You kind of examine yourself like, brah, the way you know what I mean? The way you are as a man and stuff. And it's like, it's like, you want to be the best dad for that little girl. You want those little girls to look at you, and you want them to admire the daddy that loves them, that honors their mom. You know what I mean? That, really, gonna respect you, because that's the legacy that you're leaving for them. Yeah, is that. So I remember that time I said to myself, "Oh man," I said, "I gotta stop all of this. I gotta put this life that I'm going through, I gotta put this away. I gotta that's it, enough already. Enough of this drug life, enough of this, just put everything away." And that's when I took my wife out to dinner. It was Route Chris down on Ala Moana Boulevard. Where is that? I forget the name of that. Where it was Restaurant Road. That's right. And I sat her down, and I remember telling her, "I got something very important that I gotta tell you, honey." And she was like, "Okay." And I think we never even eat yet. Did we eat? or maybe it was after I don't think we ate. And I said, I brought you here tonight because I gotta share something with you. And you know, I told her everything. I said, honey, I'm a drug addict, and I'm on ice, and you know, funny, I was up for about 5 days prior to that. And I remember I was with my cousin in Powell Valley. He was my best man at my wedding. And I told him, cousin, I'm tired of this already. Can stand on that solid ground and to pray for me